Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our chat with Laurie Lane-Zucker. We had a little technical difficulty getting our recording set up, so I hope you're catching this after the fact, and that you'll have a chance to get to meet Laurie, learn a little bit about Impact Entrepreneur and the resources that he's providing to our fellowship program. I think it's a really great opportunity that Laurie is supporting us, has been supporting us since the inception of NEIII, being an advisor and a close confidant of Lubna, who you got to meet before. So Laurie can give another perspective on why the New England Impact Investing Initiative sort of came together, the resources and missions that we're trying to achieve with this type of programming. But also, Laurie, you'd be able to tell us a lot about your work, how Impact Entrepreneurs started, what your mission is, where you're headed with this, and some of the resources and access opportunities for the fellows to take advantage of through your work. So
yeah,
I don't know, where do we want to start with the conversation, Laurie?
wherever you want. I'm happy to give some background on impact entrepreneurial history there.
Yeah,
Feels like a natural starting point.
yeah, please do.
Okay. Yeah, again, for those who might have joined a little later, I'm fighting a head and throat cold, so if I sound a little rough, that's the reason for it. Yeah, so I'm the founder and president of Impact Entrepreneur. I've been in the work world for over 30 years. It's my whole career, except for the first year or two, couple of years when I was working in the film industry. Um, as my whole career has been focused on sustainability issues, challenges. First half of my career was as the founding executive director of an international environmental organization that publishes a notable magazine in the space called Orion. Still exists, kind of a philosophic voice for the environmental sustainability movement. I've also been very involved in developing educational models, something called place-based education. We developed back in the 90s and is a vibrant form of environmental education that focuses on the continuum of nature and culture that defines a place and creating pedagogies that have students and others engaged in that continuum as in a very experiential way, an interdisciplinary way, in order to have individuals become a deeper part of that continuum. So I've done a lot of that, a lot of network building in my career. I really strongly believe in the value of creating like-minded networks of professionals. Yeah, and done a lot of publishing, magazines, books, do have websites. So in 2006, 2007, I left my longtime job leading Orion and started what became one of the first B corporations, a founding B corporation. I assume that most of you are familiar with the B corporation movement. This was a precursor business to Impact Entrepreneur. Share some characteristics of it. That was one of the first 25 B Corps, so we were called founding B Corps. And right around the same time as B Corps emerged from think tanks, something else emerged from think tanks, as you may know, impact investing, which grew out of a series of convenings that Rockefeller Foundation, Rockefeller Philanthropy, and some other key players were having in the early 2000s. The term impact investing was coined in one of those meetings in Italy at the Bellagio Center, Rockefeller Foundation's Bellagio Center. There was a meeting and the term was adopted. And as I was starting my early B Corp, I was introduced at the same time to impact investing, which was just emerging from those think tanks and becoming something. And I just drank the Kool-Aid big time. I just felt like, well, having spent much of my career working in the sustainability field and really engaging closely with a lot of leading scientists and policymakers and others, I uh, came to the conclusion that as important a role as government and the charitable and nonprofit sector had in kind of addressing major social and environmental concerns, uh, I developed a very clear belief that that was not enough at all. We needed to really, in a very single-minded way, address the largest impact maker in the world, which is the business and finance community, the economy and the direction of the economy. And so and B Corps and impact investing seemed to me then and still to this day as a very uh, uh, thoughtful, strategic, and practical approach to um, engaging the economy or business and finance in not simply doing less harm, but actually doing proactive good in the world. So I drank the Kool-Aid big time, and that earlier company, that B Corp, actually had some of the earliest impact investments ever made. So we were the first company ever to list on the first effort to create an impact investing exchange. It was called Mission Markets back in 2010, 2011. We were the first company to list on that and the first to transact an equity deal or transaction on that kind of platform. So we got some recognition for that. Impact Entrepreneur grew up I founded it in 2011. I coined the term Impact Entrepreneur, established the term with some very specific things in mind. I was very aware of the long tradition of social entrepreneurship, long, I mean, several decades old. And I consider myself a social entrepreneur. However, I was, as I experienced it, I felt that there was some significant holes in the story that was being told around social entrepreneurship. The focus, as I was experiencing, was on building individual companies that were doing good in the world, or nonprofits for that matter, because social entrepreneurship is has been traditionally agnostic around legal form, which is another issue I've had with it. But the biggest hole in the story was that there was that focus on building individual or discrete businesses. But what was missing was an understanding or a belief that those businesses need to live within an ecosystem, a business paradigm that reflected the same brain chemistry or operating principle, and that what was being expected of social entrepreneurs back then was that they had to build their businesses within a dominant business paradigm, a single bottom line dominated business paradigm that it was very clear to me was largely antithetical to what social entrepreneurs were trying to accomplish. And this was deeply problematic. So I founded Impact Entrepreneur and coined the term and defined it as what I call systems-minded innovators, systems-minded change makers, very explicitly and is focused on business and finance innovators. And within a context, a deeply transformational context, impact entrepreneurs not only build businesses that are doing good in the world. Excuse me, I got a head cold here. They also understand that we have to collaborate with a wide range of stakeholders to build a new business paradigm and ecosystem that can not only hold and affirm social enterprises along their path to growth and success, but also transform the entire economy from a single bottom line to a triple bottom line operating system. So that's the ambitious mission of Impact Entrepreneur, is to create, in a sense, new archetype of entrepreneur, of innovator, one who is, as I said, systems minded. We do our individual things. We have our individual expertise. We build our individual companies, but we understand at the same time we're working with a global movement of colleagues, professional colleagues who are in policy, who are in education, who are entrepreneurs, who are investors in finance, that we're all working collectively toward this new transformed state of the economy. So that's what is behind Impact Entrepreneur. I was an English major, so I care about definitions of words. And so we have always had the same two definitions of the word impact that we've used in our work. One is a little bit more technical. The word impact is defined as the rigorous application of blended value. Blended value referring to the triple bottom line, but grows also very much out of the inspiration that I and others have gained from a particular individual and his work, Jed Emerson, who has co-wrote the first book on impact investing with Anthony Bug-Levine, and has written a number of other things, including The Purpose of Capital, which I think is the best book on the space that's yet to come out. So and he kind of established the term blended value. So I definitely would be looking into Jed's work as foundational to your understanding of impact investing. And then there's others. We could talk about other key thinkers and books in the space, if that's useful, that I see as foundational. So that's the first definition. The second definition of impact is aspiration. It's transformation. Impact is transformation. So an impact entrepreneur is somebody who is, as we've discussed, working toward transformation in their work. An impact investor, as we would like to see it. Now, not everybody has the same definition of the impact investor, but this is ours. Impact investors are people who are seeking deep-seated transformation in the economy. Okay. Okay, so I launched it. I wanted, as I mentioned, I'm very interested in building networks, and I wanted to ground everything that we did in the future in Impact Entrepreneur in a global network that targeted three main demographics: entrepreneurs, investors of all kinds, and including philanthropy and others involved in the financial sector, and academia, scholars and students. Of course, we wanted a much broader set of professionals and individuals to also be participating. So I use the term these days of impact practitioners as kind of an all-encompassing umbrella of the types of people that we welcome into our network. Back in 2011, I said, well, how do you build this kind of network in this day and age? And LinkedIn was it seems like it's been around forever, right? But it was a pretty young platform at that point, but it seemed like a very efficient way to find and connect with like-minded professionals. So I really focused on using LinkedIn in many different ways to start building, establishing Impact Entrepreneur as this archetype, as this network. We launched a LinkedIn group, Impact Entrepreneur, as a place for people to gather and share their work. And that has grown tremendously, and it remains to this day a core gathering place and vehicle for finding new people in our work. If you're not yet a member of the group, I would urge you to join it. You have to ask, and then we actually curate it extremely closely. Every request that we get is we look at their profiles, And we choose about 5% of the people who ask to join. There's a whole set of reasons why that I won't get into it right now, but it's very selective. We want people who are showing that they're a very sincere interest in being in the space. And the posts, if you're on it, it's amazing to spend time on our LinkedIn groups page, because you see this movement globally. And we get about 75 to 100 posts a day. We curate those. We started curating them a month or so ago because we were getting so many, and there were some that were off mission. So now everything that shows up there is curated tightly, and you get a real sense of the dynamism of this movement. So anyway, there's the invitation for you all to join. So we built this network that we have 37,000 members in the group, over 200 countries represented, and we did a lot of field building work, working with others who are very active field builders in the space. Over the years, we've had summits, conferences that we've launched where we kind of focus on, okay, what's missing in the space, what needs to be developed further. For example, we did a whole year-long project with Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors in 2017, which was focused on philanthropies and how philanthropies can be more involved, not simply in impact investing, but in impact economy building. So impact economy is that term. I talked about the transformed state of the economy, and impact defined as transformation. Well, the impact economy is that new state that we're working toward. So we're using that as a umbrella term for a lot of what we do. And so we did a project with them. We did produced some research on how the philanthropy sector can be more involved in impact economy building. We did a lot of other things as well. About 3 years ago, I decided the time was right for us to produce a online magazine that covered this movement, that produced or offered quality journalism about it as much as possible within that kind of transformational lens. And we launched it about 2.5 years ago, impactentrepreneur.com. You've seen it, and spent some time on it already. It was the first, I think it is still maybe still the only one that is a magazine of its kind that's explicitly anchored to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So every article that we publish is tagged with usually more than one SDGs, given the interrelatedness of the SDGs. But we're big fans of the SDGs, and especially as they emerged and been adopted by so many stakeholders in the space. So it's a great way to kind of ground our editorial inquiry. Impact economy. So we cover 17 SDGs. We cover 17 related issue areas. If you go to impact economy on the navigation, you'll see what those 17 issue areas are. And we cover business and finance innovations that are advancing these things in every region of the world. So it's a big task that we've taken on. We achieve this editorial mission by what we call a collaborative editorial process. So we have a few different types of contributors. We have guest contributors. Anybody can propose a piece to us at any time. We have content partners. Those are organizational relationships with other field builders in the space, folks that are doing serious thought leadership, or by virtue of what they do, they might be an accelerator, business accelerator in the impact space. They just see lots of potential stories, and they're capable of producing quality original content for us. So we have about 55, somewhere between 55 and 60 content partner organizations. And then we have correspondents, and these are individuals who write for us regularly. They applied, and we have about almost 30 of them now around the world. It's a very exciting group, and we work very in a very engaged way with that group of people, since they are writing for us regularly. Yeah, so we've among the other things we launched along the way, and this was uh, our webinars. We started webinar series well before the magazine. I think we're in our 6th year now doing webinars, and we have built up, as you'll see, and you'll have access to with your premium memberships, that you have that archive of about 125 or so 75-minute programs. I believe it's one of the best educations you can get in the space, and it's well worth spending time watching them, because we've been lucky enough to have as guests at our webinars many of the leading lights in the space and leading practitioners in the space. So very rich resource that is available to you. Yeah, and then when we launched the magazine, we started another set of live programs, deep dives. And these are, as you, I think, probably are aware of now, because you've done a little work on this. These are live programs that we do. They're meetings rather than like this, rather than a webinar where the audience is in view-only mode. These are full-on meetings, always attached to a particular article that we've published, where it gives our readers and members an opportunity to go deep with usually the author of a piece, but sometimes we bring in the subject who's focused on in the piece and to talk about it. And it's a very popular way for our community to engage with each other and with the people who are contributing to the magazine. So I'm going to kind of close my initial comments by telling you what other things we're doing right now. We're very active in developing a new, very important new facet to our work. We're moving into TV streaming. So we're in development of 2 TV series that are going to be introduced to the major streamers imminently. I mean, Netflix, Amazon, Apple TV, and others. No one has seen this yet. If I can share my screen, I guess I can. I'll give you just a glimpse of the first one. This is a travel series, People, Planet, Profit, an Impact Entrepreneur Global Journey. Each episode in the series goes to a particular city in the world and focuses in on 2 entrepreneurial businesses, but notably also the impact investing ecosystem, well, the broader ecosystem that exists to support those businesses. So we'll be going to Chicago, to Jakarta, to Mumbai, Boston, and Lisbon. Will be focusing on companies that are doing blue economy innovation. Kenya will be focusing on agricultural companies and the ecosystem there. Also Amsterdam and Mexico City. So that's the first one. And the second one is kind of, if you're familiar with the Shark Tank show, we're developing one that is an impact version of that type of model, where entrepreneurs are pitching to a panel of impact investors, but using, in our case, a sophisticated blended finance approach to those businesses. Yeah, that's there's more going on, but I'll stop there. I've already talked for half an hour or 20 minutes or whatever, so I'll stop and answer questions. I know we want to talk, maybe we'll talk a little bit about the deep dive list that you all send across. I've got some thoughts on that, but Stephen, where do we go from here? Questions? And there might be some questions in the queue on the chat. I didn't.
Yeah, we have a good question from Juliet that I think would be great to explore a little bit. And congratulations on the update on your streaming ideas here with People, Planet, and Profit and the Impact Investors Shark Tank. That's news to me, and I'm glad the fellows are getting a little sneak peek of what's to come. That's really exciting stuff. Um, I think
Yeah.
one thing that,
Mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
Just yes, it is exciting, and if we have to now sell these things to the or get some major streamers to one major streamer to sign on for each of them, and then once we do, we're really excited about what this could do for the space in terms of
Yeah,
really exposing impact entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, and impact investing to a much broader audience. I mean, if these series can get millions and millions of viewers. Um,
totally. And that's kind of what we need, right? We need
yeah.
to bring in more people and bring this area of finance to a broader market. I think that's why so many people here are part of this fellowship program. I am seeing that people are excited to ask you a lot of questions. Juliet had a really great question in the chat around like what skills and qualities are crucial for impact entrepreneurs to effectively lead meaningful change within their communities. And also sort of like what are your thoughts of the future of impact entrepreneurship? Where are this sector, how is that sort of going? So the key things we can learn, and then where is the sector going? I think that might be a good place to start. And Laurie Ann had a really great question of what are your what are your strategies as it comes to letting people join into the community? How do you keep the content open and people who are there really engaged and passionate? As Lorianne is a communications professional, she'd like to hear a little bit about your strategy and curating and creating this community. I think those two things I'll let you start with, and then John has a question, and I'm going to open it up to the rest of you all to have some questions. And before we let Laurie go at the end of the hour, I want to save 5 minutes or so, or 10 minutes at the end, to make sure we go through a bit of the deep dive and the resources that you have through your membership on Impact Entrepreneur, because this is a really key way that I want the fellows to engage with your community, with the content and the resources you've created, and really put the pressure, not pressure is the right word, but put the motivation to the fellows to take full advantage of all of the learning opportunities that you've helped to create. So I'm going to reserve 10 minutes at the end to do that. But Laurie, what do you think about those two first questions in the chat, and then John and anybody else who wants to jump in?
Well, in terms of qualities of impact entrepreneurs, as you might have gathered, when I use the term impact entrepreneur, I don't simply mean people like me who started a business, okay, and are running a business and building a business. Of course, that's a key type of impact entrepreneur. But for me, impact investors are impact entrepreneurs, policy people, academics who are helping to build that impact economy are impact entrepreneurs. We're all those systems-minded change makers and innovators. So qualities, I mean, each of those different types of um, occupations within the space require different expertise and um, personal professional characteristics and orientations. And so it's hard to make generalizations there. Um, what I what I and this is maybe not surprising given what I've already said, what I uh, always come back to um, in talk, when I talk about impact entrepreneurs is this notion of systems mindedness. It's about how we think. It's, I have this kind of rough metaphorical model of the human brain and how back in 1776, when Adam Smith started us down the road with the publishing of The Wealth of Nations, this notion that people People engage in the world primarily through their own self-interest. Um, and how that became a very, fundamental operating principle for capitalism over the next few hundred years. Of course, in the 20th century with Milton Friedman and his emphasis on, shareholder capitalism. And he took that to even greater extent. What I think about when I see the single bottom line dominated capitalism that has been our operating principle in developed nations for so long is a human brain that has put social, environmental, and kind of profit in their own compartments. And there's even terms for that on the accounting sheet, right? With externalities, where social, environmental are treated as externalities to the core objectives. And the way I look at impact entrepreneurship and the process that is happening as impact, as ESG with all its flaws and everything like that, as the consciousness about the importance of these things grows in the culture, and I see this as an inevitability because of the urgency of climate change, of biodiversity loss, of social inequities, etc. Um, it's what's happening in the mind that is orienting itself toward this new paradigm is that the firewalls that we've built up, these artificial firewalls that keep social, environmental, and business and profit separate, are dissolving. And what we're seeing is a much more holistic and healthy and normal flow of blood through these various hemispheres of the brain, with each informing the other all the time. That to me is the core of the triple bottom line. That to me is the core of the impact entrepreneur. It's just the way somebody thinks about business, about finance, about the world. And you can get into then very detailed conversations about what does that mean for an entrepreneur who's building a business? What does it mean for an investor? But ultimately for me, that's a common attribute of those who are increasingly deep into it. And I find, having been in the space for so long, that merely by talking to somebody, I can kind of get a sense of where they are in that continuum toward that health. I don't want to be condescending at all. I don't mean to be, but I do see triple bottom line as a healthy form of thinking of economy, and really the way that we're going to have human civilization survive the century. So I guess that relates then to the next part of the question, which is the future of impact entrepreneurship. I see this as an inevitability. Climate change is only going to get worse. It's going to get more obvious. Biodiversity loss, we're not anywhere near stemming the tide of biodiversity loss. These things are going to get more, the symptoms of these things are going to get more graphic for us, more present, more obvious. And as much as there are those who will constantly push back, in a very kind of traditional, conservative, I like the way things were, that was working well kind of frame of mind, as much as there's those who will always be there to push back against this. I see it as an inevitable tide. This transformation is going to happen. And it's just more a question of what role do you as a professional, do I as a professional want to play in that inevitable transformation? John, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Laurie, thanks for that presentation. And as I said to you when we met at the networking event, I really appreciate the energy and effort you put into kind of building the field. And I think just hearing you speak today it's so clear the hope that you hold for the future of the planet and really bringing business ecosystems up to speed to make sure that we're able to do that. So it's both that hope and actually creating the infrastructure to do it. So thanks for that. Just this comments about the video series, which looks really exciting. I was just curious, how did you go about selecting each of those sites? That seems like a really great sample around the world.
You're talking about our webinar series?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Um, you know, uh, organically is how I approach each episode, and always have. I guess when I started out, there were people who, having been in this space since impact investing started, I've gotten to know, or at least know by reputation, people who are doing really seriously good work in the space. And so I wanted to create a collection of this rapidly emerging body of work to create an archive of the best thinking as it was emerging. Um, and and so that has always been a key thing. Is there a person, or is there a topic or a subject area that really needs to be part of this, but collective body of work? So that's always in the back of my mind. These days, often it's well, I'll think of somebody who I suddenly realize, well, that person should be interviewed in our Fireside Chat series, or this is a topic we really need to cover in our Building an Impact Economy panel, which is a series of panels. And then I just make the invitation, or we design that panel. And then other ways people just come and propose, say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Would you be interested in covering it? Sometimes, somebody has a book coming out, and I'll hear from their PR person, and I'll have them send a review copy, a media copy over. I'll take a look at it, and I say, yeah, there's a potential program here for it. So it's organic. Members of my team are kind of trying to systematize things a little bit more as we mature as an organization, and we're in the process of doing some impact measurement around our webinar, really everything that we're doing, from our articles that we're publishing to webinars that we're doing, and our social media efforts, and to see, okay, well, what actually are we doing? Which things are we doing that are getting more eyeballs, are getting more interactions from the community? Maybe we should be focusing a little bit more on those things. Also, what are we covering? There's some SDGs. If you go into the home pages of each of SDG, if you go into the home pages of each impact economy issue areas, or for that matter, regions, you'll see some are extremely well populated with articles, and other ones aren't, or less so. So we're trying to become more systematic and methodical about that, and that extends to our webinars too. Is that we're always trying to see, what is our audience most interested in learning, and what kinds of programs can we do to serve that? So, and that relates to what Stephen and I have been talking about for a number of months now, which is, I've always been a big fan of New England Impact Investing Initiative and the fellowship program. And we just took it to another level this last fall when we were talking about the new cohorts that will be, not this one and future ones, and it just seemed like it was an opportunity, given that your all sincere interest in impact investing, and the the not insignificant number of you, I guess it's 40 or so, right, this year, this cohort, Stephen. So it's grown tremendously. What can we do together here? And we're still flexible enough. Impact Entrepreneurs flexible enough to, respond and tailor and customize things. So that's why one of the ideas we had was, maybe we can do a program, maybe two programs, where we kind of hear from you all what you most want to learn and think about it. Maybe we can do design a program around it. Jock, you have a question. Well, first of all, John, did that answer your questions?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing all that, Laurie. I'm really looking forward to the series.
Jock,
Yes, absolutely. Laurie, thanks for your time today and sharing so much about all the work that you've done. My question is around as impact kind of expands and thinking not just about climate, but so many other of the SDGs that you mentioned. And specifically, I guess my question is around the racial equity and wealth equity piece and economic justice. Where do you see kind of flows starting to move into that space? Obviously, I think there's certainly a strong contingent of investors focused on climate and sustainability, but when we think about sustainability of neighborhoods and families and lifestyles, that wealth gap is still a huge problem. So just curious on your thoughts on that front and where you see investment dollars flowing into that space.
yeah. Okay, so it's a very dynamic part of the impact investing space, especially since certain incidents in the last 5 years have brought to public consciousness the some the urgency of so many social issues, whether it be police, um, the relationship between police and communities of color, and but as you mentioned, Jack, the inherent inequities within communities. A lot of the leadership in the impact investing space around racial equity and justice has definitely come from the philanthropies. So MacArthur Foundation, Kellogg Foundation being maybe the most prominent one here in the States, but Ford Foundation as well, and others have not only been focused on what they can do grant-wise to nonprofits, their traditional realm of giving, but these are the ones I've named are really in many cases leaders in impact investing on the philanthropy side. And so most, if not all, of the ones I've mentioned and quite a few others have been developing strategies and impact investing instruments, program related investments, to a certain extent, mission related investments. Those are endowment investments versus program related investments being investments, often like low interest debt that comes out of the grant budget. So there's a lot that's been happening there. There are also quite a few funds. Reinventure comes to mind, Boston area impact investing fund that's very much focused on communities of color and impact investing into entrepreneurial businesses in those communities. Boston Impact Investing Initiative is another absolutely crucial and model for approaches to investing with a racial equity and justice lens. And there are other many examples, not only in the United States, but also in Europe. And I could think, I've mentioned a couple of them for you there. As usual, there's pushback, right? With the Supreme Court decision that came down about colleges and admission policies, that's kind of set into motion a lot of pushback around impact investing and using these lenses to as a basis for investment strategy, and that's predictable in some ways, and it's terribly unfortunate. But I don't think, again, I see an inevitability to a lot of this work, and that it's just going to keep growing. Another dimension to your question, Jock, is the place-based nature of a lot of this entrepreneurship and investment, community-based investment. So there are a lot of impact investors who are community agnostic, or they're just kind of looking regionally or nationally or even internationally for investment opportunities, funding opportunities. But then there's this whole very fast growing body of work. Again, the philanthropies are very involved in this, but increasing numbers of impact investing funds too, which are community focused, specific community focused. Boston Impact Initiative, Boston Impact Investing Initiative is a good example of this. It sits under the context of place-based investing. There are conferences happening around place-based investing. Very big players, as you might expect in the place-based investing universe, are community foundations and CDFIs, community development finance institutions, and much of that has to do with is focused on underserved communities. So it's a massive percentage or part of the whole impact investing universe.
Thank you, Jock and John, for voicing your questions. Laurie, as we wrap up here, and I know you have a hard stop, we have posed to you a couple suggestions for some deep dives that we could do with some of the articles that you've recently read. There's also some interest for the fellows to suggest more deep dives. I know we had agreed to get 2 in there. I want to know from this set that we've given you already, how do we move forward? Are you happy with what we've suggested? Could you create something for us out of that? Do we want to create something new? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So
and also, there are a couple people who are also interested in the Earthshot Prize and the applications that you've gotten there. So I'm going to put together a list of those who are interested there, and we can talk a little bit more about that in the future, I think.
Yeah, sure. Okay, as far as the suggestion for deep dives, there's some good ones there. There are also some ones that might be a little harder to see. There are various lenses that I bring to these. One is not only, it's wonderful that whatever we choose, if we do one with you, we'll know that the fellows will be there. So we already got a great meeting, right? But of course, we also will be inviting our community of readers and members. And so I'm thinking, okay, which of these will have the strongest appeal to that demographic of people as well. Another variable is, to the extent that the authors of those articles would be participating in the meeting, would they be interested? So when every contributor fills out a submission form for their piece, we ask the question, would you be interested in doing a deep dive if the editors want to do one? And they say yes or no. So I just go through each of these and I see if the person said yes or no. And I'm also aware that some of that you've listed the number of votes for each one. So of course, those that have higher vote gets from your fellows, I'm balancing into this. There are 2 that come to mind as maybe lower hanging fruit that are also ones that you're interested in doing. The first one, which received 6, which is the SDG, that was an article that basically I wrote. It's an internal one. It's in it, just Impact Entrepreneur is listed as the author there. In order for that to work, it would be a little bit more complicated because we'd want to go to find some probably 2 or 3 key players that are part of that initiative, MacArthur and some of the European partners. Potentially good. It's not lower hanging fruit. That would take a bit of work, and we're not sure whether we get enough response back to move forward with it. The next one on the list by Clemens Field, who's one of our correspondents, the untapped potential of private equity in emerging markets. That's that one could be one we could do. Clement, I checked out his submission form, and he is interested in doing one. He is an interesting character. You might want to actually take away from this conversation, go to our deep dive archive and look for a really, really good deep dive conversation between Clemens and Ani Patton Power, where I was wanting them. They had very different views of impact investing. He's very focused on scale, on venture capital role in it, and Ani believes and has said very vocally that she thinks that 99% of impact ventures are not right for traditional venture capital. It's a great conversation, and well worth watching. But Clemens is a great guy. He has that perspective. It's kind of a more traditional venture capital, but he's also very savvy to impact investing and is impact focused. So that one could be, I would consider to be lower hanging fruit. Another one that comes to mind is the unlocking the potential of impact investing. It's a very broad topic, but that particular article is an interview that one of our correspondents, Catherine, did with the current CEO of Tonic, which is one of the most important angel groups in the space. And I know Adam Bendel, the CEO, quite well. We're in touch regularly. I think there's a good chance that we could not only have Catherine in. I don't think we'd do it if it was just Catherine. We'd want Adam to be in. He'd be the main focus of it. And I think that he probably would do it if I ask him, if he has the time and we can find a date. So those are the two that pop out to me as ones that, you know, realistically could be done. There are other ones on that too that we could do. I think that those two would likely draw well from our broader community of readers and members, in addition to the fellows. So those are my initial thoughts. Stephen, we can have a back and forth. Unfortunately, it's 1 o'clock and I got another meeting about to start. Sorry to have something right at the end, and you know, right at 1 here.
That's okay, Laurie. Thank you so much for the color on these suggestions. This is really helpful. We had one last question on some helpful resources and reading materials for the fellows to start with, going back to that point you made on the foundations they should learn. And maybe I'll drop you a note and you could add a list of what you see as some very helpful resources for our fellows to pick up and read about approaching this.
Yeah, so The Purpose of Capital, Jed Emerson, Ani Patton Power, Adventure Finance, Sir Ronald Cohen, Impact, Morgan Simon. I forget the name of her book, but it's really good. It's your only book, so just Morgan Simon. Those are the four I would recommend first. I can, of course, think of other ones, but that's right off the top of my head.
That's great. Thank you so much, Laurie. Really appreciate you being here.
Good luck, everybody, with the fellowship. I'm sure it's going to be really enriching for you, and I look forward to working with you all on a deep dive or two, and other ways as well.
Thanks, Laurie.
Take care, Laurie. Have a
Stephen.
I'm going to check out then. So long. Bye.
Thank you. Did anybody catch those recommendations? Because I missed them.
I got them. I got them. Yeah. Plus we have the recording and I'm going to email him to send over a couple more, Beth. That's great. And I hope you saw that he didn't have a presentation at the end. He was just showing a few pictures of their upcoming streaming. Yeah.
Thanks.
How did you find the conversation, or generally to the rest of you? How was it? Super interesting, Lorianne. Yeah, I'm sorry you didn't get to answer your question on the question of his strategy, but have some thoughts there. We could talk about it later. See you later. Have a good day, Lorianne. Maria, you wanted to join in? Bye, Beth. Thanks for joining.
I'll send you the link for the recording.
Great. Thanks, Barika. Really appreciate you helping out there. Hey, Maria, how are you doing?
Hi, Stephen. Great, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
It was quite helpful that Laurie delved into definitions as well, and how the impact investing kind of emerged, because you always hear it kind of related to ESG, and here it was quite distinctive, and I didn't know about Rockefeller Foundations in that regard. So yeah, great.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me to see how the term is being coined and where it came into really the mainstream. And there are some other people that had impact investing and its form being described even before Rockefeller, but Rockefeller Foundation and the work they did brought it really into the mainstream and really put money directed towards it. And so I think it's very helpful to see, plus understanding that like Rockefeller is a major form of capitalistic endeavors, right? And they really saw that the foundational work in driving change is part of it. And so I think it's a really beautiful way to understand the flaws and also ways that things need to change, and we really need to make change, like positive influence through financial dollars to drive this like aspirational transformation that Laurie defined it as. That's one of the things I like the most about his definition.
And also the system thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Sorry.
Good. I'm glad you like the conversation. And have you gotten the chance to check out some of the websites and the resources available?
From the Impact Entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I sent you an email with what has been particularly interesting for me, and Laurie actually mentioned one of those, like the impact of private equity in emerging markets, or something like that. So I pointed out as one of the interesting topics for me as well. Yeah, that's great. But I have not found personally where this big library of recordings is. I'm quite curious, but I'll try to explore it in depth.
Sure. I can also send that link around to make sure that the fellows get that. And I'm going to provide more information. Yeah, that would be a great place. How about I pause the recording and we could chat a little bit about your other email?
Oh yeah.
Cool.